Well, how do you do? I'm doing all right myself. Well, what cool things happened today? Well, when I woke up, I was greeted to a delicious chimichanga made of egg and chorizo that was cooked by my mom. It was very good. Really enjoyed that. Next, I remember I went in my room and I turned on that CRT television over there, and I decided to watch this video from a channel called Hemis Studio. It was part of this series called Canned Goods, where he was talking about a version of Toy Story 3 called the Recall. I think it was just called the Recall Edit or something like that, or the Recall Draft. Um, and basically, he got a lot of the crew who was working on the movie uh, talk about their experiences working on the film and what led up to its cancellation. For those who don't know, before Disney and Pixar were intertwined, um, between 1995 to 2005, uh, Pixar was essentially using Disney as a distribution partner. So Pixar would make the movies, create the characters, and then Disney would simply just release the film Pixar made in the theaters and then on, like, home media at the time. Uh, this technique allowed Pixar to have some uninhibited autonomy. They still had meetings with executives, but ultimately they still had more creative leeway than if they were full-on Disney partners. Because of this, we did end up getting a lot of excellent films from this deal, namely Incredibles being a major one. But yeah, because I remember there was like a story where John Lasseter was like in a meeting with Disney execs about the movie, and he basically just told Brad Bird to ignore the execs like notes and told him to just do what he felt was right for the story, and then we ended up getting one of the best films ever. So yeah, pretty cool. But then Pixar and Disney were in a really rocky relationship around 2004, between 2004 to 2006, because Pixar's deal was ending with Disney, and Pixar was going to break from the company and become an independent studio. Um, Disney would no longer have Pixar making new films for them. Now, Disney did have a contingency plan for this, and that was Circle 7 Animation, a new studio they founded that would essentially be a Pixar sequel machine. Now, the reason being was, even though Pixar would no longer be making new movies under the Disney banner at this point in time, Disney did put a stipulation in the contract back when Pixar decided to partner with them so they could distribute their movies and advertise them, was that any character that Pixar created under the Disney banner would become property for Disney. So all the Toy Story characters, Bugs Life characters, Monsters Incorporated, everything that was made under Disney would be essentially mine or have sequels being made about these IP or the IPs. So yeah, apparently Bob Iger decided, let's create Circle 7 so that way we can create these Disney made sequels with Pixar out of the picture. However, leadership changed hands during this time. Bob Iger was put in charge as the new CEO of Disney. And when he was put in charge, he pretty much decided, Pixar is too valuable an asset. They've made a lot of high quality entertainment. We don't want to let them go. They're too iconic of a studio. So, let's just buy them instead. And so Pixar and Disney reached a deal around 2005, I believe, or 2006, somewhere around there, where Disney ultimately bought Pixar for $7.4 billion or something like that, 7.2, somewhere around that range. And now Pixar was part of the Disney ecosystem officially, meaning that since Disney had all of their creativity from the original source, they didn't need to make a sequel studio when they could just use the original studio instead. So they pretty much shut down Circle 7 and all the projects they were working on that they were in the midst of and developed quite far along. There was going to be a Monsters, Inc. sequel, Lost in Scaradise. There was going to be a Toy Story 3. There was, as far as I'm aware, I think there was just Monsters and Toy Story. Those are like the only two big sequels planned, I think. But yeah, ultimately, the work that the studio did do for the movie was now property of Pixar and Disney. So I think, and apparently Pixar began working on Toy Story 3 not long after the purchase went through. Something tells me that Pixar, well, of course they were commissioned by Disney because, Toy Story was a big deal and they knew they could make more money off it. But Pixar also probably wanted to do a third entry into the franchise, True Justice, by offering a solid conclusion to the series. So they pretty much looked at it would appear they looked at the work that was done for Toy Story 3 by Circle 7. And if you look at the stories, there are a few similarities. Now, of course, the major difference is that the broad general story of Buzz Lightyear malfunctioning and then being sent back to a Taiwanese factory to be fixed, only for it to be revealed that the factory actually would rather destroy all remaining toys in the building and instead replace them with a brand new toy instead that was going to take over. So now it's up to the Toy Story gang to save Buzz by traveling to Taiwan and going through a bunch of adventures. Similarities between this and the actual Toy Story 3 that came around was pretty much like two major things. One, the final Toy Story 3 opened up with Andy basically we saw his imagination being demonstrated by that train chase at the beginning of the movie. And much like how the actual Toy Story 3 started is how the Toy Story 3 made by Disney's Circle 7 would have started, where we would have seen Andy's imagined play time with the toys. And that ultimately was going to kind of kickstart the action of the film. So yeah, pretty interesting parallel. Pixar probably looked over the notes and was inspired by that, I would imagine. Um, Also, another thing was that during the Toy Story gang's trip uh, to find Buzz, they accidentally are thrown into a daycare where they're beaten and maimed by the toddlers in this daycare. So, and that's very similar to what happened in Toy Story 3 too. So clearly, there was quite a lot. There was at least two things that were very similar to the final Toy Story we did end up getting, which I think was pretty interesting. Although this one focused on just another big adventure with the toys trying to save Buzz from getting recalled. And the third film that we did end up getting was basically just exploring Andy saying goodbye to his toys forever, and the toys having to come to terms with the fact that they're no longer, you know, um, really seen as valuable to their original, owner Andy anymore, and they've got to deal with that. So yeah, I really like Toy Story 3, the one we did get. This original version of Toy Story 3 that was going to be made by Disney. When it was explained in the video, I actually was getting into it. Not gonna lie, I thought it was a genuinely compelling and interesting plot. There was one thing I thought was kind of weird at the end, and that was that the toys decide to come to life for the creator of Buzz Lightyear so they can tell him what's going on. I don't know. I feel like when you introduce rules that toys play dead when humans are around, even if it's a human that created Buzz Lightyear, I feel like breaking that rule, it opens like possibilities for other things getting messed with the uh, the whole idea of the toys being, you know, sentient and stuff. So I'm not exactly sure if that was a really good idea. I don't know. Maybe the best thing they could have done was like make the creator of Buzz Lightyear think he was like in a dream, when in reality he was just experiencing what the toys were showing him. But I don't know. Like there probably was a better way of going about that, and the way they went about it, I just thought was kind of weird. But overall, I thought that this would have been a pretty solid and enjoyable sequel to the previous two films. Would it have felt like a strong send off for the series? No, definitely not. It would have just felt like more Toy Story, like, ooh, here's a new adventure with the toys. But it didn't feel like a proper, like, this is how things are going to end kind of thing, like the final Toy Story did. And it didn't even matter in the first place because, well, they made a Toy Story 4 and now there's a Toy Story 5. So, gotta make that money, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, as I was watching, I was eating oatmeal cookie with raisins and chocolate and a cup of coffee, and that was quite good. And then when I was done with that, I spent like a good hour or two working on that my silly Orson Welles and Marlon Brando video. I was putting that together. That was a lot of fun. And then I got dressed and left for work. I had a 12 to 9 shift today, so it wasn't really that, long or, it wasn't so, I don't know. It was actually technically longer than the shifts I've been getting, which are 3 to 11. Like, those are 8 hours, whereas this one was 9 hours, but you get an hour of lunch in 9 hours shifts, which means they're technically just 8-hour shifts, which means the 8-hour ones are actually 7.5-hour ones. But anyways, yeah, this day went pretty smooth, I would say. Started the day doing a lot, bringing carts in, very much a throwback. When I got in, I greeted everyone, punched in, was ready to get started. Checked the schedule, did what I needed to do. When lot was done, I checked the schedule again, and then I had to sell large lobster tails all around the store. So I just went around the store for an hour telling people, we're selling large lobster tails. Only $38.99 if you're interested. So did that. I was like, I'm not a huge fan of doing that, but gotta do it. So I did that, and then I went on my first break where I meditated for a good, I would say like an hour, though not an hour, 10 minutes. Sorry, it's late and I'm sleepy. And then after that, I went downstairs. I bagged for 2 hours. I then punched out for lunch. I drove home for lunch. I haven't done this in a long time. I feel like the last time I did was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Oh, I almost forgot. Wait. Am I forgetting something? No. Okay, so I drove back for lunch home. Nobody was at home, so I heated the leftover Papa John's pizza on the stovetop with the pan and the covering and water steaming trick. It was really good. I had some soup that our family friend made that was pretty good. Like it was a noodle soup, tomatoey, and I had a Pepsi Zero Sugar. And as I was eating that, I was listening to a Digital Foundry Direct. So that was pretty interesting. Then after that, I remember I ate some ice cream, had some coffee. The ice cream was cherry Moose Tracks ice cream, by the way. So I had the coffee, had the Recess Oreo peanut butter cup. It's pretty good. I used the restroom, then I left, drove back home. Back to work. When I got to work, I punched back in. I was on sweeps for a half hour. I swept the floor. I met a coworker that I hadn't seen in a long time. Actually, I met this coworker when I was trying to sell the lobster. So this is a little ways before going lunch. I greeted them and we had a fun conversation. That was pretty cool. And then after that, now we'll jump ahead. And when I arrived, I bagged for an hour. Then I was on sweeps for a half hour. Then I bagged for another hour. I put some food away. I took some orders out. Then my last hour was doing a lot. So I did a lot. When I was done with that, I punched out, said goodbye to my coworkers. I went in my car. I drove home. When I arrived home, my middle sister was there, and I greeted her, and we were having burger sliders with cheese and McDonald's fries. The burger sliders were homemade. They were very good, and it was fun having those with McDonald's fries. Then, we were hanging out, having some quality family time, and then we decided to continue watching some One Piece, so we watched that. This was getting into Ami's backstory, why she is the way she is. It was a very heartbreaking but touching story about how Ami's adoptive sister and her were saved by their adoptive mother, who worked in as a Marine, and she took them under her care and deeply cared about their safety, to the point of self-sacrifice. And yeah, Ami, she doesn't, or It's Nami or Ami. She's kind of like, oh my gosh, we're poor. I don't like being poor. But then she learns there's more to life than being rich, and it's about community and caring about people who deeply care about you. So, she realizes this and she's going to be like, oh no, I'm going to be thankful for my adoptive mother. But then these pirates show up, these fishmen pirates, and they basically want everyone to give them a lot of money. Um, and they're about to leave, but then they realize there's like a smoke pile coming out from beyond the trees, which is in the cottage of the adoptive mother for uh, Nami and her sister, adoptive sister. And so they decide to inspect this, and ultimately, uh, the they find the adoptive mother. The mother tries to take them out, but because they're fishmen, they are much stronger than her, so they are like crushing her arm. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna get you!" And then like the guy who's like the captain for this town, he tries to stop it by like saying, "No, how much do you have saved?" And she's like, 100,000 bells. And he's like, "Just give him that." And then like the two daughters are trying to save their mother. They're told by like a guy there that, look, no, don't run away from the village. Wait, no, no, no. Look, now that your mother is saved, but she doesn't have enough to save her and you guys, you gotta run away so the fishermen don't become suspicious, and then they can leave. But then they're like, no, and the adopted mother cares more about her two adopted daughters than she does her own safety, because she prefers them to survive over her. So she decides to um, donate the money for her adoptive um, daughters instead. So she does that, but the fish guy basically like takes her out, and then he takes like Nami or Ami, and basically when he finds out that she's a great cartographer, she wants he wants her to just map out the sea for him, um, and if she can whip up 100 million bells for him and his crew, then he will leave the town and not bother them ever again. But then we find out a twist that apparently the guy is like, well, actually, I've got I'm in cahoots with the Marines, and so the Marines will take your money, and apparently any stolen money is owned by the government, and then you're going to have to start all over again, thus meaning that you will forever be my slave. Mwahaha. And so, yeah, Nami, she's like, oh my gosh. She has this weird, like, belief that if she tries giving 100 mil again, that this time nothing will go wrong. But her, the villagers are like, no, we're through with this. We're gonna stop them. But then they're stopped by two guys who tried to challenge the fishermen and said, yeah, we're tough guys, and even we could handle them. You guys don't stand a chance. But then, Luffy, Usopp, Yuri, and the guy with the three swords, Zoro, they all band together and they're going to save the town. And yeah, that's pretty much the episodes we watched. It's pretty cool seeing the backstory for Ami. It was or Nami. It was very. She had a very traumatic childhood, and no wonder she is the way she is. Very tough, very independent, but also, you know, quick to distrust pirates because her adopted mother was taken out by a pirate. So yeah, very interesting story. I really enjoyed it. After we watched that, I had a cup of coffee while I was watching it. We decided to say goodbye to my sister. We had a great time with her. When she left, I took out the trash in the kitchen, and when I was done with that and refilled with the new bag, I decided to go for an hour-long walk around the neighborhood. While I was walking, I was trying to talk with AI about like discovering like what's like my behavioral patterns and what I can do about that. So yeah, that's what went on with that. And then after that, I listened to some music while I was like walking around the neighborhood until I was done. I went in the house. I played this game that was being provided for PlayStation Plus Essential members. I think it was called oh man, it was a Warhammer 40K game for PlayStation Plus. I'm forgetting the name of it though. It's like a first person like a buddy shooter kind of game. Yeah, it was pretty alright, I suppose. Pretty interesting. I just barely got into it. I like the art style. I like the character voices. I think that's pretty cool. Pretty simplistic gameplay, but pretty fun at the same time. We'll see so far. And then after that, I was really tired, so I took my vitamins, I brushed my teeth, and I decided to make this video. So I'm gonna upload this bad boy, and I'm gonna go to bed. So thanks for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye, everybody.